Hi there, we're here at GOTO conference in Aarhus, and with me I have Jan Møller. He's
Hello.
working on Bitcoin stuff, and he actually is almost my neighbor also, so I know him pretty well. So it's always, when you invite somebody to a conference, it has to be really good, in particular if it's somebody local. But actually Jan is really good, I was really happy with that. So you got pulled into Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, so basically, Bitcoin is actually back from 2008, but it took a while before I really found out about it. So sometime during the spring of 2011, I heard about it by random from a colleague, and then I started reading, and I got totally sucked into it. It was so interesting because it makes computer science and cryptography, and those two disciplines I've been working a lot with earlier.
But you had a day job, right?
Yeah, I did. So I was working at VMware back then, but quickly I found out that I spent all my spare time on doing Bitcoin stuff and started coding on interesting problems.
So your wife wasn't too happy with that?
Absolutely not. So eventually she said that you have two jobs now. You have to select one or the other, and and eventually I decided to go full time into Bitcoin and just make amazing software.
So how do you do that when you live in Aarhus?
Yeah, so that's the thing. So in the Bitcoin community in general, the age is much lower than in classical the age of people. So it's young people, and they are all using Skype and Hangout and so on, and it's going on all over the world. So there are hundreds of thousands of startups, crashing and burning and starting again and so forth. So it's a very vibrant community with lots of stuff happening all the time. So normally, at the very beginning, I could see that, wow, this is so interesting. What is it like in 2 months? And it's the same thing right now. 3.5 years later, it's like very, very exciting new stuff happening all the time.
So yeah, of course, every now and then we get a headline in the news, so the rest of us read about Bitcoin. But what was the thing? What was the first real project that you did with Bitcoin then?
Yeah, so basically, well, I used to work in another company in Aarhus doing cryptography. It's called Cryptomatic, and back then we had some interesting projects where we tried to learn people how to protect their private keys and everything else apart from private key. Maybe you can offload that to a server, right? So just protect the private keys. It's very, very important in Bitcoin. So I made the first implementation of a system where the only thing you have is actually your private key.
On a phone. This was
on a phone, right?
Right.
Yeah. So actually, I made a Java library, and then I hoped somebody else would kind of pick it up and start coding. But eventually, I had to learn coding Android stuff myself because, but yeah.
Tough luck.
So, but anyway, it's all a matter of making this piece of software that does the very critical part, and then offload the rest to some infrastructure that can handle this load.
So you have, I can understand that you have the private key, on your phone, and that never goes away. I mean, it never leaves the phone. But what is the rest?
Yes. So in the end, Bitcoin is built on top of this new technology called the blockchain. And basically, it's a huge database containing all the transactions that ever happened in the Bitcoin network.
So you don't want to carry those ones around on your phone? Exactly,
because right now it's like 22 or something gigabytes of data, and you have to verify all of that data. And your phone is not really suitable for that. It's like checking millions of signatures, and that's just a heavy load.
So that part is offloaded to a cloud service.
Exactly. So basically, you have a little trust in this service that it does kind of the right thing, but you can choose whichever service you like. But the core thing here is that they cannot run away with your money. It's only you who can send the money.
Of course. Yeah. Nice. So you did this kind of in your spare time. I remember you had a couple of months where you're just hacking along and you didn't really have a job. You just took some time off to do that. But you can't do that indefinitely.
Right. It's a big leap of faith to do that, right? So I did that for a few months, and I have never been so productive in my life because my head was exploding from, at years. I just hacking, and after 2 months I've written 25,000 lines of code, which actually worked. And then I started to look for, is there somebody out there who wants this, right? And so, and eventually I found a company in Austria that was actually working on a similar solution. So then we're making a hardware wallet instead of a software wallet.
Like a smart card, or?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a small piece of hardware, self-contained. It has a display, a keyboard, and a battery, a processor, and a radio. And you can actually do point-to-point communication with these devices without any kind of additional infrastructure. So, but they also needed something that can track all of these things in a very efficient way. So they needed this server backend, and that was the piece I had been doing. So this is kind of how it started, and that's now 1.5 years ago now, and I'm still working on the same thing. And you can build piles of stuff on top of that.
Cool stuff. So what's happening? So you say so you say in the beginning there was this. You were really excited what's going to happen the next 2 months, but what about now? What's the exciting thing the next 2 months?
Yes, and that's really a good question. So, but basically, since over the last 3.5 years, we have seen a lot of movement from grassroots to larger companies doing business here. So I guess the latest big news is that PayPal is now offering all of the merchants to accept Bitcoin using now fairly big companies in the Bitcoin space, which they are partnered with. So this is pretty big. But that's kind of just one side of the story, because in order for Bitcoin to be successful, we need not only merchants to accept it, but we also need places where they can go and learn about Bitcoin and acquire Bitcoin, and we also need to teach people how to be responsible with the private keys, because in the end, Bitcoin basically allows you to be your own bank, and with that comes a lot of responsibility. You have you take control yourself. But you basically need to be able to have these private keys and store them safely and responsibly. And we all know about viruses and Trojans and stuff like that. And there are many of those targeted now at hacking for Bitcoins, right?
Yeah. But that's, as more and more countries also have like government IDs based on cryptography.
Exactly.
It's the same kinds of things that people have to learn. Right?
Yeah. So that we have seen movements to get normal people to have proper public key infrastructure, personal public key infrastructure, and it hasn't really taken off yet. It's so complicated. So our job is to make security easy, and that is actually very hard to do.
That's your next moonshot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much. Very good.